Tonight's headlines: got 'em. They're dead. The sons of Saddam killed in a fierce gun battle with U.S. forces in Iraq. As word spreads, some Iraqis celebrate with gunfire. Others take aim at American troops. Full coverage tonight of the final showdown with Uday and Qusay and what their deaths may mean to the future of Iraq. Plus, you'll see and hear the homecoming of an American hero. Cheers and tears for former POW Jessica Lynch.
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. U.S. forces in Iraq have wanted almost as much as Saddam Hussein, his two sons, and today they got them. Uday and Qusay shot them dead. Acting on a tip that Saddam's sons were inside a villa in the northern Iraqi city of Mosul, U.S. troops moved in and the shooting began. Around the world, this is widely viewed as a major success for the U.S. military, American intelligence, and President Bush, the most important victory since the fall of Baghdad. CBS News correspondent Jim Stewart begins our coverage of the end game for the ace of clubs and the ace of hearts.
Even before the first shots were fired, just after 8 a.m. local time, U.S. commanders were pretty certain they were closing in on the two brothers, but it took a 6-hour-long gun battle before 101st Airborne Division troops could move in and find the proof.
4 persons were killed during that operation and were removed from the building, and we have since confirmed that Uday and Qusay Hussein are among the dead.
In the official version, the shootout sequence began when an Iraqi informer walked into a U.S. military location in Iraq Monday night and provided information that the two brothers were staying in a villa on the north side of Mosul. Sources say U.S. intelligence, however, had already sniffed out the same lead, and the tipster only confirmed their suspicions. Inside the villa, troops uncovered small arms, several documents linked to the brothers, plus the body of Mustafa Hussein, Saddam's 14-year-old grandchild, and Qusay's son, who was known to travel with his father, plus the body of a lower-level bodyguard. Military intelligence agents made the first identification by examining the bodies. Then persons who knew the brothers also confirmed their identity.
We've used multiple sources to identify the individuals. The bodies are in a condition where you could identify them.
Acknowledging that the Iraqi population has been loath to believe American claims, officials say U.S. soldiers took videotape and still pictures of the battle's aftermath and suggest they may release some as early as Wednesday. As for where Saddam's sons have been all this time, officials say they do not have a clear roadmap. There was also no sign of Saddam Hussein in the Mosul area, and there's been no new intelligence on his whereabouts since U.S. forces launched a quick strike against a convoy of SUVs on the Iraqi-Syrian border, but later discovered no Saddam. For the moment, U.S. officials say they'll take their successes one person at a time.
I believe very firmly that this will, in fact, have an effect. This will prove to the Iraqi people that at least these two members of the regime will not be coming back into power.
Ironically for the brothers, if they had taken their father's advice, they might still be alive today. U.S. officials say they had reliable reports that just before Baghdad fell and the family made a run for it, Saddam had urged his sons to split up so as not to attract attention. Clearly, they didn't listen. Dan?
Jim Stewart reporting live from Washington. Experts are checking DNA samples taken from the bodies identified as Uday and Qusay, though U.S. commanders say they're sure the identifications are correct. CBS News correspondent Byron Pitts in Baghdad has the reaction there.
Tonight, the sky over Baghdad is live with gunfire. We're on the roof of our hotel where oftentimes the shots have been loud and close. This all started about the time news began to spread that Saddam Hussein's two sons might have been killed by U.S. forces. We're not certain if these are shots of anger or jubilation or a combination of both. But it remains a night like this city has not seen since the days leading up to the fall of Baghdad nearly 4 months ago. Tracer fire, the rattle of AK-47s. Much of this reaction may have been joy, but not in Mosul. In this former Saddam stronghold, it was all anger. Crowds pelted U.S. soldiers with rocks, and the soldiers fired back. Earlier in the evening, we spoke with U.S. soldiers on patrol who thought the deaths of Saddam's two sons might signal the end to the kind of random violence that has killed so many Americans in the past several weeks.
Well, it should mean that we shouldn't be here as long, because once they get the most wanted list captured, you know, they can set up a pretty good government and we can get out of here.
It was optimism not shared on the street by some Iraqi civilians, where the lawless still live amongst the law-abiding. And those without guns could only stand by and watch. People who fear as long as Saddam Hussein is alive, their lives are in jeopardy.
So what? The son of Saddam Hussein, not Saddam Hussein himself.
Still, for many, the death of Saddam's sons is welcome news, a sign better days may be ahead. Thank God an oppressive era has ended, says this man. But at least for now, reality here remains the same. Iraq remains a dangerous place, both in the daytime and especially at night. Byron Pitts, CBS News, Baghdad.
The people of Iraq had every reason to fear the sons of Saddam Hussein. Handed life and death power, they wielded it without mercy. But Uday and Qusay did have their differences of both style and substance, as CBS's Bob Orr reports.
In a country ruled by fear, Uday and Qusay Hussein were the top enforcers. Their deaths are a powerful blow to Saddam's die-hard loyalists and may help convince skeptical Iraqis that regime change is a fact.
It will deprive resistance fighters of much of their hope that the Baathists will one day be able to come back to power.
Uday, the ace of hearts, and Qusay, the ace of clubs, trailed only Saddam himself in Iraq's power structure.
Both of them were thugs, but with very different personality types.
Qusay was quiet and calculating, often seen at Saddam's side. He supervised Iraq's Republican Guards, headed up Saddam's protection, and was the heir apparent. He also ordered wholesale executions, earning the nickname Mr. Snake. While Qusay preferred to operate from the shadows, his older brother Uday was a flamboyant, outgoing playboy. He sat in the Iraqi parliament, but rarely showed up. He ran a TV channel and a newspaper, collected sports cars and pornography, and lusted for violence. As head of Iraq's Olympic Committee, he tortured underperforming athletes and once killed Saddam's food taster in a jealous rage over a woman.
There's no question that both of Saddam's sons were responsible for the death of thousands. But I would think that with Qusay, the number was way up in the thousands, and that he would have been the one who gave the personal orders for many of them, those we're finding in mass graves.
Intelligence sources say the brothers had been traveling together since the fall of Baghdad, purposely separated from their father.
I've said all along it's only a matter of time before we find Saddam Hussein, and I hope that day is a day earlier now.
The military continues to check out tips concerning Saddam's possible whereabouts, and there is some optimism, since it was a tip, in part, that led to his sons. Bob Orr, CBS News, Washington.
Coming on a day when yet another American soldier was killed in an ambush north of Baghdad, word that Saddam's notorious sons had also been killed was especially welcome news at the White House. But it wasn't the only news there today. CBS's John Roberts is at the White House. John?
Dan, President Bush was elated at today's news, saying it was a positive step for the Iraqi people. It was also a bright spot for the president after what's been a terrible couple of weeks dealing with this issue of Iraq and uranium. But the White House's troubles on that front aren't over yet. Today, Deputy National Security Advisor Stephen Hadley said it was his fault that that statement ended up in the State of the Union. Over the weekend, the White House uncovered a couple of memos to Hadley from CIA Director George Tenet, warning back in October that that intelligence was dubious. Today, Hadley said that he forgot about those memos and that he failed in his responsibility to ensure that the State of the Union was sound. So in just a week, this has gone from the buck stops at the CIA to the buck now stopping at the highest levels of the White House. And you can be sure, Dan, that the president's critics won't let it stop there.
John Roberts at the White House, thanks. In West Virginia today, it was surely the most anticipated homecoming ever for U.S. Army Combat Supply Clerk, and it was certainly an emotional one. PFC Jessica Lynch, the former POW, finally left the hospital, a symbol of spunk and survival. CBS's Jane Clayson has the very public welcome for a very popular private.
The mile-long parade through town took only 13 minutes, but it was plenty of time for hundreds of West Virginians to cheer, to cry, to see their hometown hero.
It's great to be home.
Private First Class Jessica Lynch, wearing her newly awarded medals, including the Purple Heart, finally came home.
I would like to say thank you to everyone who hoped and prayed for my safe return.
And there were thank yous for those who rescued her.
I'm also grateful to several Iraqi citizens who helped save my life while I was in their hospital. And then a unit of our Special Forces soldiers did save my life.
She paid tribute to the members of her unit.
I'm happy that some of the soldiers I served with made it home alive. And it hurts that some of my company didn't.
With special mention of Private First Class Lori Piestewa.
I miss Lori Piestewa. She was my best friend. She fought beside me, and it was an honor to have served with her.
Private Lynch spoke for only a few minutes. Her injuries, numerous broken bones and a fractured disc, still prevent her from walking or standing for very long. Much of her journey home today was by wheelchair. Less than 6 months ago, Lynch was an untested 19-year-old preparing to ship off to Iraq.
I'm excited. I really want to go, so I'm ready to go.
Then, 3 days into the war, her convoy took a wrong turn, and Lynch's Humvee crashed under heavy enemy fire. Severely injured, she was held prisoner in an Iraqi hospital. A week later, a dramatic nighttime rescue. But then the question surfaced. The Pentagon was charged with exaggerating the details of her rescue. Through it all, she says she is proud to have served.
I've read thousands of stories that said when I was captured, I said, I'm an American soldier too. Those stories were right. Those were my words. I am an American soldier too.
From Iraq to the hospital and now finally home, Jessica Lynch faces a long, slow, and painful recovery. All this, Dan, at just barely 20 years old.
Live from West Virginia, Jane Clayson in Elizabeth, West Virginia. Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News. Was there any way to prevent the attack on America? What congressional investigators have concluded about that? Coming up. In Liberia, West Africa today, rebel leaders announced a ceasefire, but it didn't take hold. Government and rebel fighters traded machine gun and mortar fire in Monrovia, the capital, where at least 100 people, including many civilians, were killed in fighting yesterday. A U.S. Navy task force with Marines, some 2,000 U.S. Marines, is headed to the region, but the U.S. is not committed to landing a substantial number of troops in Liberia. Congress is getting ready to release its official findings on one of the most painful questions surrounding 9/11. Could anything have been done to uncover and stop the terror plot against America? CBS's Joey Chen reports some of what Congress found.
A joint congressional inquiry has concluded there was no smoking gun, no single piece of information that could have prevented the attacks. But in an 800-plus page report due to be released this Thursday, the panel casts a critical eye on the nation's intelligence agencies. A congressional source says the report did find there were a number of missed opportunities, mishandled elements which could have helped investigators uncover and foil the plot. Among them, contacts with 2 of the hijackers who had lived with a paid FBI informant in San Diego. Though their connection to Osama bin Laden was known, U.S. intelligence failed to put them on a watch list until they had already entered the United States.
If the FBI had those names, and if they had acted on them, and they might have had a break, and they might have been able to find out what was going on.
But the FBI did know the first names of the 2 hijackers thanks to the informant. Still, a spokesman insists that wasn't enough to conduct any further investigation. What may be more troubling, a section that sources say shows widespread financial links between the Saudis and the terrorists has been taken out, reportedly for security reasons. But a key senator says it is for purely political reasons.
It has more to do with protecting agencies from the spotlight of responsibility for their gaffes, gaps, and incompetence that contributed to September the 11th.
Other members are also grumbling about what was left out. Said one, we're right back where we started. There's just too much we don't know here. Dan?
Joey Chen reporting live at the Capitol. In Paris today, more than 100 tourists were quickly evacuated from the Eiffel Tower after fire broke out near the top. It was a smoky electrical fire, possibly caused by a short circuit in a room just below the broadcast antenna atop the 1,000-foot tower. Firefighters put it out in less than an hour. No one was hurt. Still ahead here on the CBS Evening News, powerful summer storms again, this time slashing across eastern and southern states.
Got an itch.
Remember the antics of these fish? At first, fishermen thought it was funny. Not anymore.
It's an ecological catastrophe that these things are in here.
It's the great carp invasion. Tomorrow, why these fish are so dangerous and what they're doing to America's largest rivers. That and more on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
The hunt for Patrick Dennehy, the Baylor University basketball player missing for more than a month, focused today on a gravel pit near Waco, Texas. Police searched the pit and the nearby Brazos River based on a statement made to the FBI by Dennehy's former teammate, Carlton Dodson. Dodson was arrested last night in Maryland and charged with Dennehy's murder. On the CBS Weather Watch, severe storms spread today from the Midwest to the east and to the south. In Memphis, Tennessee, powerful thunderstorms toppled hundreds of trees and brought down power lines, cutting off electricity to 250,000 customers. At least one person was killed in Tennessee. Heavy rainstorms also rumbled through Erie, Pennsylvania. Rescue teams used anything handy to evacuate residents and their pets. High temperatures and wind could hamper efforts to fight a 105,000-acre fire in north-central Montana. It's one of almost 50 major wildfires burning in the American West. And NASA today unveiled new satellite imaging technology that can zoom in quickly on wildfire hotspots to help direct firefighters on the ground. In Indonesia, there's no high-tech solution for an active volcano. Just get out of the way. Many residents were evacuated from the area around Mount Saputan, a volcano that's been spewing smoke and ash, leaving Indonesian villages miles away, coated in dust. Fans said a final farewell today to the Queen of Salsa, the Grammy Award-winning singer Celia Cruz. Under rainy New York skies, fans lined the streets as her body was taken by horse-drawn carriage to a funeral mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral. Celia Cruz, a Cuban-born U.S. citizen, died last week at the age of 78. Coming up next, Eye on America. Our economic series, Making Ends Meet. Tonight, a visit to the bidding wars. Are the houses, the real estate, worth it?
The CBS Evening News and tonight's Eye on America segment are sponsored by Fibercon. Refreshingly easier to take.
We end the broadcast with our special Eye on America series on the economy, Making Ends Meet. Tonight, Jerry Bowen takes you to the stratosphere, which is where you will find many home prices and many would-be buyers fighting for a chance to pay those high prices.
Would-be homebuyer Tom Davies went to court today to learn if he finally got his piece of the American dream.
Are you feeling lucky? I'm feeling very lucky. I'm hoping that it'll go in my favor today. I'm very nervous as well.
You know, I really like this. And then the high ceilings in here, too.
For 6 months, he's been living and dying in the twilight zone of Los Angeles real estate.
It's been a total nightmare, actually.
An unreal place where median prices rose an average 15+% last year, and starter homes in trendy neighborhoods start at $500,000.
I've been outbid on actually 4 pieces of property. One that I was outbid on was by more than $165,000. Do you see the size of the master bedroom?
It was in April that Davies made his bid on this 2-bedroom home, listed at $600,000 in an estate sale.
And I like the barrel ceilings.
A sale the judge will rule on today. A trophy for the winner in LA's sizzling housing market.
Hot, 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 hot. Very hot.
Real estate agent Jenna Cooper knows she's Tom's agent and is trying to keep Lisa and Bill Berghofen ahead of the herd in their search.
$720,000. Which, can you believe that? That's underpriced?
It'll be a feeding frenzy for this house, no doubt.
That $720,000 house went for $820,000. The Berghofens didn't bid on it.
And it's just under 2,000 square feet. And it's
Or this starter home listed at $800,000.
It's a little bit depressing. There's not a whole lot out there on the market.
And that continues to be part of what's driving the market. Low inventory coupled with still low interest rates. And in California, an economy generally better than the nation's because of strong defense, movie, and biotech industries.
As soon as you can get in, you should try to get in it.
But getting in is tough when so many others are ready to outbid you.
No central air.
Remember Tom Davies' nightmare?
You wait 24 hours, 48 hours, even more than that sometimes, 4 days, and then you find out that you've lost it. And then there is another waiting period to find out how much did you lose it to.
The sale price is $670,000. Terms.
This time, Tom Davies bid $70,000 over the asking price. And this time...
Hearing none, sales approved, petition is granted.
This time, the price was right. In Los Angeles, I'm Jerry Bowen for Eye on America.
And that's part of our world tonight. Dan Rather reporting. We thank you for joining us and invite you back tomorrow for the CBS Evening News. Good night.
For news 24 hours a day, log on to cbsnews.com. How these fish are devastating America's largest rivers tomorrow. Experience CBS News.